The celestial amphitheater hung in the void between stars, a marvel of crystalline architecture that had hosted peace treaties, coronations, and executions for 10,000 years. Today it bore witness to something unprecedented: the marriage of Commander Marcus Chen of Earth to Princess Velshara of the Crovaxi Empire. 87 species filled the floating galleries. Ambassadors whispered through translation matrices. Combat drones hovered at strategic points, their weapons cold but ready. Everyone knew the stories about humans, the mammals from the small blue world who had somehow survived first contact with the galaxy's apex predators and emerged not just intact, but victorious. Marcus stood at the altar platform, wearing the formal uniform of the Terran Defense Force. No weapons, as per the sacred protocols. His hands hung loose at his sides, but Ambassador Terrell of the Syndicate noted how the human's eyes never stopped moving, cataloging exits, angles, and threats with the instinct of a born predator. Velshara approached on her 8 legs, her chitinous body painted in the ceremonial colors of her house. She was beautiful by any standard, elegant, deadly, and heir to an empire that had conquered 40 systems before humanity had even discovered fire. Their courtship had been a diplomatic miracle, born from mutual respect in the aftermath of a war that had nearly consumed both their peoples. The officiant, a being of pure energy contained within sacred geometries, began the ceremony. Its voice resonated through every species' auditory range simultaneously. We gathered to witness the union of flesh and chitin, of mammal and arthropod, of earth and Crovax. Let all present bear witness to this bond. Marcus stepped forward. In the human custom, he slowly lowered himself to one knee before his bride, his head bowed in a gesture that every species present understood. Submission, vulnerability, trust. A collective intake of breath rippled through the amphitheater. The Crovaxi warrior caste shifted uncomfortably. Humans didn't kneel. Humans didn't submit. That was their entire reputation, written in the blood of a dozen battlefields. Princess Velshara, Marcus said, his voice carrying through the ancient acoustics, I give you my heart, my loyalty, and my life. I kneel before you not as a conquered man, but as one who has found something worth more than pride. Velshara's mandibles clicked in emotion. She extended one delicate limb to touch his bowed head, a gesture of acceptance among her people. Rise, my beloved. Let us face the stars together. And Marcus stood. What happened next would be analyzed in military academies for generations. As the human rose to his full height, something shifted in the amphitheater's atmosphere. It wasn't a movement. Marcus remained perfectly still. It wasn't a sound. The silence was absolute. It was something more primal, something that triggered instincts older than language. Every predator species in attendance felt their combat reflexes activate simultaneously. Hackles rose. Weapons hands twitched. Combat drones recalibrated their threat assessments. Because as Marcus Chen stood and looked out across the assembled representatives of galactic civilization, they suddenly remembered what they had tried very hard to forget. Humans were persistence hunters. They were the species that had tracked megafauna across continents until their prey collapsed from exhaustion. They were the mammals that had looked at the galaxy's most advanced war machines and asked, how do we kill it? They were the creatures that had been written off as primitives, invaded by 3 separate empires, and had systematically dismantled each invasion fleet with nothing but ingenuity, determination, and an absolutely terrifying refusal to accept defeat. Marcus had knelt out of love, but he had stood as what he truly was, human. The commander turned to face Velshara fully, taking her forelimbs in his hands. The officiant continued the ceremony, but half the gallery was no longer paying attention. They were recalculating political positions, reassessing military treaties, and reconsidering every assumption they had made about Earth's intentions. Ambassador Terrell activated a secure channel to his homeworld. The marriage will proceed, he transmitted. Recommend we accelerate trade negotiations with Terra. Also recommend we never, under any circumstances, threaten the Crovaxi Empire again. Clarify, came the response. The human knelt before his bride. It was the most human thing I've ever witnessed, choosing vulnerability, demonstrating trust. But Ambassador... Terrell paused, selecting his words carefully. When he stood again, I understood something crucial. Humans don't kneel because they're weak. They kneel because they're strong enough to choose when to be gentle. and that makes them more dangerous than we ever imagined. Across the amphitheater, similar conversations were unfolding. The hegemony's military observer was updating threat assessments. The collective's diplomatic corps was drafting new protocols for human interaction. The ancient ethereals, who rarely attended physical ceremonies, leaned forward in their observation spheres with something approaching concern. The ceremony concluded with the traditional exchange of genetic markers, a symbolic merging of bloodlines that would bind two families, two peoples, two former enemies into something new. Marcus and Velshara turned to face the assembly, and the commander's expression was one of simple joy. But the galaxy had seen what lurked beneath that joy. They had been reminded that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their capacity to love fiercely enough to kneel, and their strength to stand again with that love burning behind their eyes like a star going supernova. As the newlyweds departed through a corridor of well-wishers, the celestial amphitheater's ancient stones seemed to vibrate with a new understanding. A human had bowed before his alien bride, demonstrating the kind of emotional courage that most species had forgotten in their climb toward technological advancement. But when he stood, the galaxy remembered why humanity had earned its place among the stars not through conquest, but through the simple, terrifying act of refusing to stay down. Ambassador Tyrell filed his final report as he returned to his ship. It contained extensive political recommendations, economic projections, and military assessments. But he added one personal note that would be quoted in strategy sessions for decades. "We taught the humans to walk among stars. We forgot to ask if they could already fly. Today I watched a human kneel in love and rise in strength. I finally understand why they call their homeworld Terra. It doesn't mean Earth in their ancient tongues. It means ground. And ground, I have learned, is simply a place where humans rest before they stand and reach for something higher." The marriage of Marcus Chen and Princess Velshara would be remembered as a turning point, the day the galaxy stopped seeing humans as primitive newcomers and started recognizing them as equals, not because of what they could destroy, but because of what they could create when they chose love over fear. And in the darkness between stars, where the celestial amphitheater hung like a jewel, the ancient stones hummed with stories of the species that had bowed before the universe and stood again, unbowed by anything except their own choice to be gentle. The galaxy had watched. The galaxy had trembled, and the galaxy had learned.